All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. And of course, I am your tour guide around the swag Seawells coming at you. And we are in week 12, man. We have one more full week of swag action. And then we have a week after that. The Thanksgiving weekend has three games. And then that's it for the regular season. So we are rapidly approaching the finish line. And these division races are coming to a close, but there's still a little there's still some uncertainty in the air depending on some results, but we could see some divisions be wrapped up by the end of the weekend. So we could finish, we could be almost at the finish line, or we could have another couple of weeks of chaos. So well, let's see what happens. But last week was a very interesting week because the underdog teams, man, they played really well and they came out to play, and they made quite a few games and put up an upset or two. So will this week be the same? We'll find out. But before we do all of that, man, y'all make sure y'all hit the socials. Twitter is Swag Talk 76. Facebook and Instagram are both Swag Talk. I have the Week 12 Pick'em link on there. It's a pinned tweet on my Twitter account, and it's also on my Instagram and my Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts on Week 12. Who you think gonna win, who gonna get upset. What's what. Is anybody gonna clinch? Any of that good stuff. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to be alerted to when videos drop. Like I dropped a video on Monday, I dropped one on Tuesday, and then we may drop one on Saturday. So if you want to keep tabs on what's going on outside of our usual Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule, you can find it there. So let's just make sure y'all hit that notification bell, and let's stay locked in on that. So with all that being said, man, let's go ahead and get into this recap. This preview, excuse me, of week 12, because it's a very interesting week. The first game on the schedule is Grambling taking on Alabama A&M. The Bulldogs are coming in off of a victory over UAPB, where they put over 50 plus points on the Golden Lions last week. Groundless coming in off of a 3-point victory over Alabama State. So both teams coming in off a win. This is a Thursday game, so it's a short week for both teams. This is a 7 p.m. kickoff on ESPNU. So y'all make sure y'all check that out after y'all finish watching Swag Smoke. We'll be the lead into that game, so y'all rock with us and then go check that game out. Both teams need, they both need wins because they want to finish out the season strong. Grambling has 2 games left, this one and then the Bayou Classic. A&M has 3 games left. They have this game, then they have Valley, and then they close out at Florida A&M, which was a game that was rescheduled from earlier in the season because of a hurricane. So um, both teams looking to finish strong. Both teams are looking to finish 500 or better, and it's possible for both teams. So let's see how these teams stack up against each other. A&M is offense personified. Their offense has been really, really good this season. They score a lot of points. They can run the ball well. They can pass it well. They're scoring over 30 points a game. Grambling is right behind them at 26, which, when you think about it, that's honestly pretty impressive because most people look at Grambling as not having a good offense, but they can score points at times. So they're both 2 and 3 in the conference in scoring. Grambling is actually 4th in scoring defense at 25.3 points per game, and Alabama A&M gives up 32 points per game. When you look at the numbers, A&M is the top offense in the league, averaging 455 yards per game and 6.2 yards per play. So they have a very explosive offense. Grambling is at 9th at 297 yards per game. So when you look at that number and you look at the points, you realize Grambling they get it done a lot off of turnovers. So they get a lot of short fields. They're not necessarily a team that's going to drive the ball down the field and score. So if you have to take care of the ball when you play against Grambling, because they will turn you over. And A&M has had some issues with turnovers here and now. So they really have to be careful in this game. Defensively, Grambling is 8th in total defense at 374 yards per game. Alabama A&M is 6th at 358 yards per game. So they about neck and neck. Again, Grambling's numbers are a little different because the turnover factor. They still give up big plays, but they do force turnovers, and that allows them to not give up as many points as they probably should. They probably should with the way that they move the ball on offense. Grambling is a team that's kind of having a tough time running the ball this season, even though they have some very talented backs. They're averaging 119.7 yards per game, and they're averaging 3.4 yards per carry. And like I said, they have some solid backs. Hargrove has 392 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bradford has 386 and 5 touchdowns. Talbot has 184 and 4 touchdowns. And Keelan Elder um, had a big game against Bama State last week. He has 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they have guys that can carry the ball. And when you count Del J. Bailey at quarterback, he's a guy who's going to be a threat to use his legs. They have a solid rushing attack. They just haven't really been able to put it together consistently. Um, and that's been one of the issues with this team offensively. But they are going to run the football, and especially with Bailey at quarterback, um, that offense is going to definitely be more run oriented first. Miles Crowley, he possibly could play. I know they said they were going to test him real hard this week. I would not play him. I would save him for the classic after the bye week. Give him another week to get ready, and then let him go out with that game. But um, they're facing the Alabama A&M defense that is pretty solid against the run, 144 yards per game. Grambling defense gives up 139 yards per game on the ground. So both teams are pretty solid against the run, and A&M runs the ball very well. They average 195 yards per game and 4.9 yards per carry. They get it done really with a two-headed monster. Donovan Eaglin has 669 yards and 7 touchdowns. He scored 5 touchdowns against Pine Bluff on Saturday and 145 yards. And Xavier Langford, their quarterback, is a guy who can really carry the ball, especially in the red zone. He's a big threat there. He has 7 touchdowns. And then you factor in Ryan Morrow and I always butcher this kid's name, Noka. I kill his name. Y'all got to forgive me. He has 207 yards on the ground as well. So they have four guys who are legitimate threats carrying the ball, but Langford and Eaglin are really your two guys that get the bulk of the carries, and you know that makes that offense very dangerous because they can throw the ball, and when you look at when they take to the air, the offense is just as good as when they run the ball, and they lead the league in passing offense at over 260 yards per game. Um, Grambling's offense, they average 177 yards through the air, but they have been more run oriented the last few weeks. And Grambling's pass defense is 11th. They allow 235 yards per game, but they have 14 interceptions on the season. So they are boom or bust. They're capable of making a big play when the ball is in the air, but they're also capable of giving up big plays when the ball is in the air. And A&M is gonna go. They're gonna test the secondary of Grambling. A&M defense is pretty. They're ninth against the pass at 213 yards per game. But A&M's passing attack is led by obviously Xavier Langford at quarterback. He has 1,081 yards. He has 7 touchdowns, but he does have 6 interceptions. So that's something to be wary about against Grambling. He can lapse into a bad turnover here and now. And against a team like Grambling, that could be a factor that keeps you from winning this game. Keenan Hambrick leads the team with 36 catches for 594 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Quadrant Welch has 19 for 297 and 3 touchdowns. And then they have a few other guys who are able to get some things done. So they do spread the ball around. They also work in a tight end, Barry White, from time to time. So they do spread the ball around, but Hambrick is their key guy in the passing attack. Grambling's going to have to be aware of them running the ball to set up the pass. And they will air it out on you, as you can tell with them having the number one passing offense. Grambling's offense, since Miles Crawley went down, has not been that great passing. Bailey has 375 yards. He did have a 200 plus yard game against Bethune Cookman a couple of weeks ago, but they seem to be more of a team to run the ball. Javon Robinson is their top target. He has 37 catches and 457 yards and 1 touchdown. Grambling, like I said, their defense is honestly where they draw that's their bread and butter, especially when you look at it in terms of forcing turnovers. Um, this is a defense that, like I said, they have 14 interceptions, which which leads the league, and they do have one pick six, but they have 14 interceptions, and they have nine fumble recoveries. So they have 23 takeaways on the season, and that's something to really be wary about. That's something that keeps them in a lot of games, and that's why a lot of their games are close, because they do force a lot of turnovers, and that keeps the offense in short field position, and it kind of puts the pressure on the other team. A&M's defense, they have 13. They have 13 interceptions, so they're pretty solid there, and they have recovered seven fumbles. So they have 20 takeaways. So both teams are pretty solid at forcing turnovers. So that's something that either team can can kind of work with. Um, Oh, excuse me. I looked at the wrong the wrong thing. A&M, they only have four interceptions on defense, so they have 11 takeaways. So they haven't really been that great at forcing turnovers, but their offensive line is pretty solid. Only allowing 13 sacks on the season. Grambling allows 21. They did not give up a ton of sacks, but they have been allowing the quarterback to get hit quite a bit, and that kind of hurts them. A&M's defense has 15 sacks. Grambling's defense has 18 sacks, so they're pretty even there. One of the key things to me in any game is third down conversions, and A&M, they convert 38%, so they're pretty solid there. Grambling is only at 31, and that kind of shows that they can't consistently do long drives down the field without kind of faltering. A&M defense, they are seventh at 38%, so they do give up a decent amount. Gremlins right in front of them at 37. So both defenses are pretty solid against on third downs. One offense is pretty efficient, the other one is up and down. And to me, like I said, the key in this game, honestly, is A&M taking care of the football. They're at home. It's a short week. That gives them a little bit of an edge, but not enough to really sway the game so much. But if they take care of the football and their offense continues on the pace that they've been on most of the season in conference play, they should win this game. I think it's still gonna be close because Maryland plays a lot of close games. Their defense keeps them in some games, and with them being able to run the ball, that helps work the clock. So I like A&M in this game. I think it's going to be another game that comes down, to maybe a late touchdown. I like A&M in this game 28-21. I do think Grambling is gonna battle a lot in this game, and they may be able to pull ahead, but I think A&M's offense is kind of on a roll right now, so I expect them to kind of keep that going at home, and I think they'll pull out this game. One key thing to look at for A&M is they've lost three conference games. Two of those three losses, they scored 20 points or less. They did have that 38-point uh, total against Jackson State where they came back from, I think, like 45-10 or something like that. So that might be an outlier when you look at their losses, but they don't really tend to put up a lot of points when they don't win. So even if you look at the Austin P game, they didn't score a lot of points there, and obviously against Auburn, they didn't really score any points there. So if they can't score All right, so Franklin, he's at 340 yards on the season and one touchdown. Also, Somerset is at 329 yards. I also believe Kelvin Dean got banged up in the game against Valley, so I'm not sure where he's at, but they can, they do have guys who can carry the ball for them. If they decide to go that route, like I said, they don't like to run the ball a lot. Valley is led by Tajarian Williams, the quarterback on the ground, with 273 yards and five touchdowns. After that, you can see almost anybody running the ball behind him, but mainly is Jacoby Thomas. He has 193 yards and three touchdowns. And also, DeFabian Fant is a guy who is kind of a change of pace guy. He has 206 yards on the season and two touchdowns. Both teams, they will throw the ball. Valley's offense is actually seventh in passing offense, so they're not as bad as you would think Valley would be passing the ball, but they have some really solid and talented pass catchers. Um, Nathan Remberts, a guy who has put up some really good numbers that a lot of people don't know. He has 801 yards on the season and two touchdowns, so he probably will go over 1,000 yards this season. He also has 58 catches, which leads the conference. So he has two more catches than Giovanni Gibson. So he's putting up some really solid numbers. Carrick Ross also has 27 catches for 298 yards and three touchdowns. And Jackson Davis at tight end has 23 catches for 272 yards and one touchdown. Williams, his biggest issue is turnovers. He has 11 interceptions on the season to seven touchdowns. And he's really, that's the one area that he struggled in. And FAMU's defense, I think, is going to probably try to take advantage of that. The Rattlers haven't really forced a ton of turnovers this season. They do have six interceptions on the season, but they haven't really, like I said, forced a ton of interceptions. But they're second in passing defense at 160 yards per game. So that's an advantage for FAMU. I don't think they're going to have to really do a lot in this game to really win it. Um, like I say, I think regardless of who plays at quarterback, the Rattlers should be fine. Junior Maritovic, he hasn't had a lot of action this season. He's 21 of 45 for 189 yards and one touchdown with four interceptions. So he struggled against Prairie View. So maybe with a week on his belt against a game like this at home could help him. Um, I do think that FAMU wins this game. I don't think it's going to be really close. It might be close early, but I think that the Rattlers will pull this one out. I like them. I'm going to say 31-12. I think it may be a little bit more tight than it normally would be for a team who really should blow this team out the water in most cases, but this could be a perfect storm type of thing to make this game a little bit closer than it probably would be. But I do think the Rattlers win it comfortably. It's just I think the health of Daniel Richardson is very key to this game. Obviously, his health in general is key. And like I said, if he was healthy, or if he was anywhere above 60%, I wouldn't even play him this week. I just hold him and give him another week to get ready, and have him come out for the Florida Classic. But I think they're fine in this game with whoever at quarterback. So I think the Rattlers get the win here, and that takes us to our third game, which is Bethune-Cookman, who is a team who is becoming they're kind of becoming hot. They're obviously not picking up wins, but they're playing a lot better than their record indicates. I think this is a team that is a little underrated. I don't really know exactly how to put it. I think they have some talent, and I think they play hard, and I think they can cause problems for people. I saw them in person for the first time Saturday, and they have some guys who can make some things happen. Their issue is always going to be just being able to finish games and being able to start fast in some games. They were able to kind of meander through the game against Southern because Southern couldn't really get anything going offensively, but they couldn't really pull away either. So that made the game closer than it probably should have been on either side. But they do have some good weapons on their team. And like I said, they're playing a lot better. Their numbers don't really generate that, but they're playing a lot better. Texas Southern is kind of like the opposite. When you look at them in week one, they look like a team that would be able to be in the mix, legitimately in the mix in the division. And as the season's going on, obviously they lost KJ Cooper early, and that kind of changed some of the trajectory of the offense. But their offense had just been going down and down and down every week. and they just, they're kind of hanging on by a thread. They did have they had a close game against Alcorn, but they had a defensive touchdown and one offensive touchdown, and then they got snowed under in the second half. So where can this team score points? That's important. Neither team is really lighting up the scoreboard here. Bethune is at 19 points a game. TSU is at 20. The Wildcats give up 35 points per game. TSU defense gives up 31. I still think Texas Southern defense is kind of underrated. I think they just don't have a lot of depth, but they can make some plays, but they can wear down. And Alcorn wore them down last week, and so they average 364 yards on defense. Bethune-Cookman's defense is last at 465. Offensively, TSU is last in total offense at 245 yards per game. Um, they just, like I said, they just haven't had a lot going for them. Bethune-Cookman is not that far in front of them at 273. So on paper, this is a game with two offenses that really can't really do much. But I think, in reality, I think Bethune-Cookman is playing a bit better than TSU, and I think that helps them some, but it's a road game for them. It's a second long road trip, so who knows, how they're going to be. But their offense only runs for 96 yards per game. And that's a little deceiving because they do have some guys who can carry the ball for them. Dennis Palmer at running back is a young guy. He's played a lot more recently. He has 441 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cam Ransom at quarterback also can carry the ball. He has 94 carries for 187 yards and 5 touchdowns. And Courtney Reese chips in 201 yards and 1 touchdown. Texas Southern, they want to run the football. That's what they do. They want to run the ball. Quintrell Quinn leads the team with 480 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns. Renfro has been playing a little bit here and there. He has 139 yards and 1 touchdown. Jordan Davis, 135 and a touchdown. Jace Wilson, 114 and a touchdown. But they struggle when they need to go to the air. Now, their offense is last in passing offense at 106 yards per game. They've only thrown the ball 187 times, so that's the second fewest in the conference. They only have 7 passing touchdowns, again, the second fewest. And they've thrown 5 interceptions. So they haven't really been able to generate any passing offense, and that's been crucial to them in not being able to pick up any wins. Bethune-Cookman's offense is a bit better passing the ball. They're at 176 yards per game. They have 11 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Defensively, Texas Southern is 5th at 175 yards per game, and Bethune-Cookman is 10th at 225 yards per game. Again, Cam Ransom is a very solid quarterback. He completes 63% of his passes. They don't ask him to do a lot down the field. He does have a 70-yard touchdown, but they don't ask him to do a whole lot down the field. They're going to throw to the tight ends. They're going to, spread you out and nickel and dime you and see what breaks. And if it's not there, he's going to take off. And I think that's going to be a key factor in this game. He has 1,429 yards on the season through the air. And Lorenzo Jenkins is his top target in terms of yardage with 19 catches for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. Thomas Nance is their top tight end. He has 24 catches on the season for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Malik Huggins has 26 catches for 269 yards and 1 touchdown. So they can really make some things happen. TSU, that offense, like I said, their passing offense just has not been there. Right now, Jace Wilson leads the team with 398 yards and 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. They just really haven't been able to put anything on the board with the passing game, and that just slows them down so much. One crucial factor in this game, I think, is third down conversions. Bethune-Cookman, they're dead last at 27%. Texas Southern is right in front of them at 29%. Somebody's going to have to be able to move the ball. Somebody's going to have to be able to move the ball because you're not going to be able to rely extremely. You're not going to be able to rely on big plays through a game all the time. You're going to have to be able to drive the ball from time to time. And I think the team that's able to do that is the team that's going to win this game. One key factor I also want to throw in this game is both teams are very good in the return game. Texas Southern leads the league in kickoff returns with 23 yards per return and a touchdown. And of course, Darnell Dees and Bethune-Cookman, they are fifth at 19.9 yards per return with 2 touchdowns. So Sean Xavier Lewis and Darnell Dees can make a interesting matchup in this game, in the return game for both teams. I think even though TSU is playing at home and this is Bethune-Cookman's second long road trip in 2 weeks, I think they're kind of rounding the corner. I think they're gonna kind of feed off of the result from Saturday, even though they didn't win. I think they played a really solid game, and I think they're turning the corner. And I like them in this game. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be a close game. I say something like 24-22. I think Bethune Cookman wins this game, and they pick up a much needed win and kind of continue their momentum toward the end of the season. All right, and that takes us to our fourth game of the day, which is a very important game. Alcorn has the Purview to take on the Panthers. This is a big game for Alcorn, and even though in the standings it's not big for PV, but it's big for them because they have, they've kind of rounded the corner, and they've kind of put together some things. So you want to kind of keep that momentum going. But this is a big game for Alcorn. They need this game. If they lose this game, depending on what happens in the Southern game, they could be done. But if they lose the game and Southern loses, then they're still probably gonna be done. So it's like they really need to win this game because if they happen to lose this game and Southern loses, and then they lose again next week, then it doesn't matter what Southern does. But if they lose this week and win next week, they finish tied with Southern. Um, if Southern lose their next 2 games, then they're gonna finish tied. So they need to win this game, and they just need to keep winning. So this is a big game for them here. They picked up a big victory against TSU, outscoring the Tigers 28-7 in the second half to pull away. Alcorn, they haven't really put a lot of points on the board. They're only scoring 22 points per game. Purview is at 23, so neither team is really lighting it up. Although the Panthers have been kind of again rounding the corner a little bit these last couple of weeks. Defensively, Alcorn gives up 27 points per game. The Panthers at 29. When you look at these teams offensively, Alcorn they at 361 per game on offense and 5.4 yards per play. Purview's at 322 per game and 5.2 yards per play. Defensively, Alcorn they give up 335 yards per game. Purview gives up 389. Alcorn is definitely a team that runs the football. They lead the league in carries by 26 carries. They have 200 yards per game on the ground. So they really want to run the ball. They average 5 yards per carry. Purview is a team who doesn't put up crazy numbers running the ball, but again, they have guys that can do it. They average 115 yards per game and 3.3 yards per carry. Lamaje McDowell is a wrecking ball. He had a really didn't have a great numbers game against FAMU, but he was able to score 2 big touchdowns in the second half and run a couple guys over because he's a big back that can carry the load. He has 384 yards on the season and 7 touchdowns. He averages 4.3 yards per carry. So he's definitely a guy that can get the job done. But Alcorn, first and foremost, they want to run the ball. And Xavier Vaughn and Jacorian Sewell are the guys who do it for them. Vaughn has 676 yards. He averages 5.8 yards per carry. He has 11 touchdowns on the ground. Sewell is at 559 yards on the season and 3 touchdowns. So both of these guys are more than capable of carrying the ball. When Vaughn's doing it with his legs, that makes the offense a lot more explosive. Now they're not gonna kill you with their passing game, but if they can hit some big plays down the field, then that makes the offense even more dangerous. They only average 161 yards through the air. So they're not going to hurt you there. Really, they have 9 interceptions and 6 touchdowns. That's not what they do. They run the ball first and foremost. And if they can run it, then they're going to run it on you. And you have to be able to make them throw the ball and get them out of those situations, put them in long down and distance, which I think is going to be tough for Prairie View defensively to consistently stop Alcorn on the ground. But Prairie View thrives in the air, and they've thrived recently on big plays through the air. They're at 206 yards per game passing. They're facing the Alcorn defense that's really good against the pass. They give up 164 yards per game, and they have 10 interceptions on the season. The Panthers have thrown 8 interceptions, so that's a potential matchup there that I would like to see. Now, Prairie View's defense is last against the pass, but I don't expect Alcorn to go out of their way to exploit that. But one thing, like I said, Prairie View's done really well these last few weeks is throwing the ball. Uh, Jaden Johnson has been really solid for them. Hadn't really put up a lot of great numbers, but he has a big connection with James Burns these last few weeks. And James Burns came kind of out of nowhere the last few weeks. He has 23 catches for 409 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 17 yards per catch, and he has a long of 80, but he also has like a 70-yard touchdown. I think he has like a 75-yard touchdown, a 50-yard touchdown. He's a guy who is a big play personified. And that leads me to one key matchup between offense and defense. And like I said, Alcorn's defense is really good against the pass, and their defensive line and defense as a whole forces a lot of turnovers. They have 17 sacks as well. And Malachi Bailey is a guy I like to see in a matchup against a Prairie View offensive line that's kind of struggled to protect the quarterback. They've given up 24 sacks on a season. So I think that's a matchup that Alcorn can win if they can get some pressure on the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, and force him to make some errant throws. They can keep themselves in the game. Now, Alcorn's offensive line does give up sacks too. They've also given up 24 sacks on the season, and Prairie View has 16 sacks. So both teams are pretty even in both respects. But I think a guy like Malachi Bailey is a big difference maker in a game like this. If he can make a couple big plays or help somebody else on the team make a couple big plays, I think that can go a long way in helping them in this game. Again, this is a huge game for Alcorn. How they handle their pressure is going to be important. They won their first game in quite a while last week. They lost 2 close games in previous weeks. So, are they going to be able to, handle what's in front of them and, take care of a Prairie View team who's playing a lot better in these last few weeks of the season? This is probably, if JSU Bama State wasn't on the schedule this week, this would probably be the game of the week, especially because of the implications. I really don't know which way to go with this game. Honestly, one side of me thinks Alcorn could win this game, especially if they can get their running game going against a pretty solid Prairie View run defense. I think if they can win that matchup, I think that can put them over the top. If Prairie View hits those big plays that they've been hitting in recent weeks, then I think that's going to put them over the top. I think, like I said, I'm gonna go with Alcorn. I think they're gonna win this game. Again, I think it's gonna be another close game. I think it's gonna be like a 24-21 type of game. I can see the Panthers winning this game, but I think Alcorn, they're gonna have a little bit extra to them because they know what's at stake and they know that they really can't afford to drop this game. Prairie View, with them being mathematically in the race, but realistically they can't really win it. I think that, playing for pride, I think that can put you over the top. And coming off of that victory over FAMU could be a boost, or it could be a situation where they maybe a little bit more inflated. But I don't think that Coach McDowell is going to allow those guys to be resting on the laurels of last week. So I think they'll come in focused. But I think Alcorn, I think they'll win this game. Like I said, I think it's going to be close. This is a matchup of 2 teams that kind of have different styles, and whichever style has the most advantages in the game is gonna win this game. And I think Alcorn being able to run the ball, especially on the road, I think that helps you a lot with kind of slowing some things down and keeping defense off the field for a while and not allowing a lot of those big plays that Prairie View looks for. So I like the Braves in this one. That takes us to our 5th game on the schedule, which is a game that if any other team, I wouldn't even really put a lot of thought into this game. But the way Southern plays, Pine Bluff has a shot in this game strictly on the strength of the fact that Southern has yet to put anybody away. Southern's 5-1 in conference, and they won 3 games in overtime, and the other 2 wins are by 5 points and 10 points. And both of those games required fourth quarter scores to win. So they haven't they haven't won a game comfortably. Um, they haven't really played great football in any aspect, honestly, all season. So it's almost amazing that they are sitting in the position that they're sitting in, and are they going to be able to seal a deal? That's the key. Knowing that this is a team that plays good, plays bad, plays good, plays bad. They played bad last week, so I guess I think it's going to shape up to play good this week. Who knows? But um, they are in a good position, but they're also in a dangerous position because Pine Bluff offensively is going to challenge them through the air. Um, and that's gonna, honestly, that may put a little bit more pressure on Southern's offense to keep the ball away from them. And they have to, whatever going on with Southern offensively is gonna, again, I've said it the last few weeks. Um, Other than a couple games, I think when you look at Southern, I think their offense dictates this game. I mean, if their offense does not get going, I think that gives Pine Bluff a good chance. If Southern offense plays well, then I think that makes it tougher for Pine Bluff. Again, this is a team in Pine Bluff that is pretty explosive through the air, and they score 25 points per game. Southern is at 20. Defensively, Pine Bluff gives up 36 points per game. Southern is at 23. The defenses in this team in this game are on two different scopes. Although the same thing was said last week, and Bethune-Cookman's defense was able to hold Southern to no points for 3 quarters. So a lot of that is gonna be how Southern plays offensively. But the Golden Lions defense, they give up 432 yards per game. Southern gives up 304. They gave up right at their average against Bethune-Cookman last week. Pine Bluff's offense is actually sixth in total offense at 341 per game. Southern right in front of them at 360. These teams do different things. Southern, they want to run the football. They run the ball 369 times, which is the third most times in the league, and they average 147 yards per game. And they have guys that can run the ball extremely well. When you look at Southern, of course, Kobe Dillon is the leading rusher on the team. He has 617 yards on the season. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. He did have a big 2-point conversion last week, but he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Kendrick Rhymes is the more of the home run hitter. Although his longest run is shorter than Kobe Dillon's, but he's still a guy who is going to break those long runs more often than not. He has 5 touchdowns on the season and 439 yards on the ground. And C.J. Russell has 233 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that they have a 3-headed monster to run the ball, and they're going to use those guys all interchangeably. Usually the guy with the hot hand is going to get the bulk of the carries. And that helps this offense. And when they can run the ball, they typically are successful. They ran the ball for 235 last week. So they are capable of doing that. And against a Pine Bluff defense that has a tough time stopping the run, allowing 219 yards on the ground, that's a big advantage for Southern. Southern defense, their passing defense is kind of, their rushing defense is kind of that Achilles heel, although it's not necessarily, because they give up 149 yards per game on defense. And even though that's not that's like their worst stat on defense. When you look at Pine Bluff running the ball, they average 116 yards per game on the ground. So they're not a team that's really gonna get after you too much running the ball. They do have some capable guys that run the ball. When you look at B.J. Curry, who has 330 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Zamarion Weber, who has 305 yards and 1 touchdown, and he averages 5.4 yards per carry. So he is a guy who is efficient running the ball in his limited carries.
And Mekhi Higgins can use his legs as well. He's at 127 yards and 3 touchdowns. But where this team, where they thrive is through the air. And this is the matchup of the game, honestly. You have a Pine Bluff offense that's third in passing at 224 yards per game against a Southern defense that only allows 154 yards through the air. Um, that's honestly going to be the biggest key. If Pine Bluff can move the ball through the air against this Southern defense, they gonna remain in this game. Now I think the last 3 weeks, Southern's faced the top three passing offenses, and they've had or the last 4 weeks, Southern's faced the top two passing offenses in the league, and they've had varying levels of success. I guess you could say they held Alabama and them under 100, and I think they held them under 200 yards passing, right at it. FAMU was around 250, so they've been pretty solid there. They did give up about 240 against Bethune, but they don't really get beat that much down the field. You're gonna have the nickel and dime Southern, but I think the key for Southern is pressure. Their defense, they try to get a lot of pressure. They have 22 sacks on the season, and they're facing the Pine Bluff offensive line that gives up 30 sacks. So, to me, protecting Higgins is going to be key for Pine Bluff. If they can't keep him upright or he's running a lot for his life, then that helps Southern a lot. Southern doesn't have a lot of interceptions, only 4, but they've been in position to make more. And they just, they haven't really had the luck go their way. So I think if Pine Bluff's offense can keep them in the game, moving the ball through the air, I think that can help them a lot. I don't know if it's enough to help them win, but it's enough to probably keep them in the game. Now, Southern is not that far behind them at 213 yards. Now, Southern's passing offense is very helter-skelter. I mean, they played 3 different quarterbacks this season. I don't know who's going to play this week. I don't know if T said going to start again or if Wood's going to get the start. But they're up and down. Now they can light you up through the air at times, and then at other times they can look like like the passing game is just not there. So even though they're statistically not that far behind Bethune-Cookman, they're 4th behind them. The way they do it is just different. They do when their offense is clicking. Dupree Fuller's a big aspect of that offense at tight end. Darren Morris is also a guy who can go down the field, and they got Chandler Whitfield back, who's kind of a slot guy who can make some short catches and turn them into long games. So they have talent there, but the connection in this game is obviously Mekhi Higgins and Giovanni Gibson. These two have connected for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns with 56 receptions. Southern's going to have to be aware of where he is, and they're going to have to figure out how to slow him down and not let anybody else get loose. And that's going to be the key to me. I still think if Pablo wants to win this game, that running game is definitely going to have to be a factor. I don't know if they're going to be able to just sit back and pass all game with their offensive line being the way it is. That puts a lot of pressure on your quarterback to make plays, being flushed out the pocket and being harassed by different guys because Southern's going to play a bunch of different defensive linemen and they're going to throw them all at him. So if he can't use that run game to kind of keep them honest a little bit, then I think it's going to be a situation where they put up some points and they get some yards through the air, but they can't really get over the hump. But again, the key to this game is Southern's offense, how they play. I mean, they had a big run against Bethune-Cookman to open up the game. They got it called back by a holding call, and they just never got right after that. They have to start fast because, like I said, if you let this offense with Pine Bluff get going, you're gonna be in for a long night. And again, can Southern handle the expectations? That's the key to this game. If they can learn from last week and come out and just play football and not think about what's going on in other games and not overlooking this team and being like, well, this team is last in the West and this and that. Southern mentality in this game is probably the biggest factor in this game. if they come out focused and ready to play, I think they win it pretty decently. I won't say comfortably or convincingly because I don't know if Southern can do that. We haven't seen them do it. Even against Savannah State, they struggled for a while before they pulled away from those guys. But against FCS talent, they just haven't really won a game comfortably. And I really feel like this team is what they are. They're a team who's gonna keep teams in games. They're gonna kind of feel their way around, and they're gonna kind of stumble and fall and pull up on a win. And I think this is probably gonna be another one of those games. I know a lot of people, wondering if this the week that Southern luck gonna run out. And it's always a possibility, but I think that this won't be an overtime game. I think this won't be a game that comes down to the final score. I do think that it's going to be tight in the second half, but I think Southern, will be able to pull away in this game. Maybe similar to Alcorn, where they were able to kind of pull away and hold off. I think it's going to be a game where Pine Bluff scores a few points. I think they can score. I think they're going to score like 17, 20 points. And Southern's probably going to score like 27 if they can get there. So I like this game like 27-20. And I think Southern will finally play it, as close to a complete game as they can. But that Pine Bluff offense and that passing attack is definitely going to make this an interesting game. And it's going to force Southern to have to execute. They're not going to be able to just stumble and bumble through this game with an offense that is on the other side that's more than capable of lighting them up and putting more pressure on their offense to keep pace. So Southern obviously has to slow this game down and kind of keep it ugly and just get pressure on Higgins and hope that they can fluster him and make him make some mistakes. And that would be the key to winning. And that takes us to our final game of the day, and that is Jackson State at Alabama State. Now, this game lost a little bit of shine because of Bama State's loss to Grambling last week, but it's still a big game for the Hornets. JSU, if they win this game, then they win the East. I don't think, obviously, they're not going to come in this game thinking like that, but they've been playing some really good football, especially in the second half the last few weeks. Now, earlier in the season, JSU played good first halves and kind of tailed off in the second half and let teams kind of hang around, not really come back, but kind of make some moves here and there and kind of get themselves back in the game before they close the door on them. But the last few weeks, they have not allowed that. They've been slamming the door on teams. And I think that, for Bama State, losing that game last week the way they did against Grambling, I think that kind of puts some doubt in your head coming into this game. Now, they're going to be ready and they're going to be fired up because they're not going to want to let JSU win the division on their home field. And they want to be able to keep themselves in the race because they need this win, and then they need the win next week to have any chance, depending on what JSU does in a following game. So this is still a big game. It's not necessarily winner take all, but it's still a big game. It can be the difference between a division championship or an extra week before we get there. And so to me, this is honestly an offense versus defense matchup. Now, Bama State's been a bit better on offense in recent weeks with the addition of Kareem Key. Their offense has jumped up to 24 points per game. JSU's offense is at 37. Now, both defenses are very good. Bama State's defense gives up 19 points per game. JSU gives up 20. Total offense, Jackson State is at 418. Bama State is at 317. Again, both defenses 1 and 2. 285 yards for the Hornets, 285.7 for Jackson State. They are, when you look at Jackson State, you don't really think that their defense is as dominant as it's been. But their defense has been really good this season. I don't think they're getting the attention on defense that they have been getting in recent years. But this is a really good defense, and they don't allow much on the ground. They lead the league in rushing at 102 yards per game on defense, and they lead the league in rushing on offense at 220 yards per game. Bama State runs the ball for 170 yards per game, and the Hornets give up 110 yards per game on the ground. So both teams don't allow much on the ground. Both teams are pretty solid running the ball. Bama State offense, even though they've clicked a little bit more in the past game, they still don't have a lot of numbers to back that up. They had 146 yards per game through the air, and Jackson State is at 197. Again, JSU is an offense that runs, and then they set that up. They set their passing game up with that. They like to hit you with the deep ball. They have some really speedy playmakers that can go the distance at any time. You know, you have a guy like Terrell who has 345 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Um, he also has 12 catches for 74 yards on the season, but he's also a very good kick returner. He's able to take it to the house on returns. Bama State also has a good return unit with Robert McMahon, so both teams can get it done in the return game. Jalen Dupree's a young guy who's been more active in the offense these last few weeks. He has 14 catches for 221 yards and 4 touchdowns. For Tillian and Spencer, they're both at about 460 yards per game. 460 yards through the air. Fortillion has 7 touchdowns. Spencer has 3. Marvin Landy at tight end has 13 catches for 205 yards. But this team obviously is led by their run game, and that's Herb Mulligan leads the way. He almost at 1,000 yards. He'll probably get there Saturday with a 100+ yard game. He's at 896 with 8 touchdowns, and that's only in 8 games. So he's been very, very productive. He's a tough guy to bring down, and he's more than capable of getting the job done there. Especially with a unit that's been banged up as a whole. His carries have increased, and he's been more than capable of carrying the load. Terrell's right there, like I said, with 345. Morgan is at 264 and 5 touchdowns. And then a guy like Cameron McCoy, if he comes in at QB, he can run the ball as well. He's at 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they can that running is what they do best. Again, I always say they cross 150 yards, they're gonna win. And that's the key in this game here against a Bama State defense that doesn't give up a lot. But Bama State has to be able to maintain some offensive flow. The last few weeks they haven't really been consistent on offense. You know, they can hit a big play here, hit a big play there. The run game has taken a little bit of a dip, losing Holesclaw and really set this offense back a little bit on the ground. So they have to be able to find a way to keep pace with Jackson State. Both defenses, like I said, are extremely good. Joshua Nobles leads the Jackson State defense with 3.5 sacks, with 9 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. Reed Pulliam leads the defense with 53 tackles. They've been getting it done. The secondary's been playing better throughout the last few weeks, and they just have been able to just slam the door on teams. Bama State, obviously, their defense is almost tops as well. Rico Dozier has 77 tackles to lead the defense. Cunningham 67. When you look at tackles for loss, Traquan Thomas has 12 to lead the defense. He also has 8.5 sacks to lead the defense. And then you have James Burgess and Amon Scarborough, who have 4 and 3 interceptions respectively. This game, I think, is gonna be a physical game first and foremost. When you have two teams that want to run the football and two teams that are very physical on defense, you know, it's gonna be one of those knockdown, drag out games, and the intensity is gonna be there because this is a big game for both teams in the standings. Bama State loses, they out. JSU loses, then they push their chance at the division back a week. But if they win, then they take the division. So there's a lot on the line in this game. And this is an emotionally charged game for the last 3-4 years. So I don't expect anything less there. To me, Bama State's offense has to show up, and they have to be able to finish drives with touchdowns. Field goals are not going to win this game for them. They have to score touchdowns because Jackson State can score points in a hurry. Grambling was able to have some success running the ball against Bama State last week, and I think that bodes well for Jackson State because they're gonna line up and run it, and then when it's there, they're gonna throw it. But I do like JSU in this game because I think they right now are the best team in the league. I don't think they drop a game here. I don't think they drop the game next week. So I think they're on a path to a championship, and everybody's just kind of in the way. And so I think because of Bama State defense is going to keep them in this game. And I think, I don't know. This is going to be probably the toughest test for Key as a starter. So he's going to be challenged a lot. can he handle it? That's gonna be, he's been up and down these last 2 weeks. And I think that's gonna be the key here. I like JSU in this game. Again, I think this is another close game. I think 20, I say 28-24. I do think Bama State's gonna get, they're gonna get a turnover here and there, and they might get a short field. They might get a good return to set them up. I don't think they're gonna be able to drive the ball down the field 75 yards all game long. I think they're gonna have something short to help them. I think they have a big play here and there, and that's gonna be what keeps them in the game for a while. But I think JSU is gonna more so keep them at arm's length than it is like a last second touchdown to win. And so that's why I think, because it's in Bama State, they're gonna have a little extra charge, and that's gonna get them over the hump here. But I like JSU to win this game. Like I said, I think it's like 28-24. And that's gonna do it for the day, man. I thank y'all for hanging in here. This was a tough show to do today, man. Had a lot of starts and stops, but we made it to the end. And with that being said, man, I'm the tour guide around the swag, signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.